Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? Good. Welcome to DigiFest South 2014. My name is Karen Wissing, and I will be moderating this panel. We're going to talk a little bit about digital marketing, marketing for the digital age. So we will jump right in, and what I'm going to ask first of our panelists is if we could start with you, Ryan, and give us a brief kind of introduction of who you are and what you do, kind of the day-to-day responsibilities you have, and answer the question of where do you see the future of digital marketing heading?
Great.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Ryan Woolley. I'm the CEO of Blue Arc. Blue Arc is a smart agency located here in Shreveport, Louisiana. So our primary focus as a company, quite frankly, is all things digital technologies and marketing. And so my primary responsibility is working with strategic relationships and partnerships, as well as working with our technology group to build technologies that help our clients acquire new customers. And so, if I had to tell you where I felt or I see marketing going in the digital age, to me it's really summed up in intelligence and data. And most of our emphasis is focused today on helping our clients acquire substantial volumes of data through semantically orchestrated content. So in other words, we're creating content that is engaging our clients' audiences with the intent to collect data. Quite frankly, we have a machine that we're developing called Liam that aggregates data through the distribution of HubSpot, which is folks are probably familiar with that, the Awareness Hub, and then we take that data, we aggregate it, we trend it to really analyze who it is we're talking to and the types of content we want. So we're kind of steering our company in the direction of digital marketing with an emphasis on data intelligence. So I think that's, in my mind, that's where I sort of see this going. You've always heard that 50% of all marketing is a waste, you just don't know what 50% of it is. Well, I think in the digital age that's changing because everything we do in the digital landscape is absolutely measurable. You can put key metrics in there, you can have key performance indicators that allow you to identify the sort of the results of your online campaigns. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Great. Thanks. Claire?
I'm Claire Fontenot. I'm the Business Development and Marketing Director for Pixel Dash Studios in Baton Rouge. Before I started working with Pixel Dash, I've also worked with the Department of Health and Hospitals, so sort of in a nonprofit space, and also copywriting for an advertising agency. Just my thoughts for future trends in marketing, provided that it all hinges on where we stand with net neutrality in the future. But if everything moves and progresses the same way that it has been for the last few years, then I think that we can look a lot towards independent content creators to be sort of the crux of where future marketing efforts are going to head.
Great. Thanks. Judy?
Judy Williams, Williams Creative Group. We have a marketing firm and encompass a lot of digital and online tactics as well. And I'm probably going to be the lone voice here who says, while I see more connectivity in the future and more convenience, and that's really important to continue to offer to people, it's equally as important and kind of not an either or, but more of an and both, to offer human connection. That also has its place, and that there are people, we're all human beings and we yearn to be connected and we yearn to be heard and acknowledged and appreciated, and there's always going to be a role for that. So I'm kind of one of these people who looks for more connectivity, more convenience for your marketing target, but along with that, the possibility of a human connection, because it's hard online, it's hard in a digital age to always read what people want, what they need, what they're looking for, and a person can anticipate problems, help you solve problems, seize opportunities in a way that you just can't do it simply connecting digitally. So I think those are both important.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Nations. I am the co-founder and vice president at Great Raft Brewing. We are a microbrewery and tasting room here in Shreveport, Louisiana. I handle all things marketing, strategy, and communications for the brewery. I also, for the last 10 years, have been involved in high-tech marketing. I currently also work at Cisco Systems, which is a global IT company. So I have a little bit of experience with both B2B and B2C marketing. I think in the future, we really need to focus on the relevance of our content. I think a lot of that will hinge on the data that he mentioned earlier, and also some proximity marketing. So that's it.
Great, thanks. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Aber. I do lots of stuff at Moonbot Studios, which is a storytelling company. We produce animated films, games, apps, and hard copy books, so we still believe in the printed page. In terms of the future of marketing, I think today's average consumer is really savvy and knowledgeable about marketing and advertising tactics. And so something that I really strive to do is identify ways, like Judy was saying, to reach out and connect one-on-one with our fan base. And a lot of times that's actually by phone or email and really old technologies. And so I think when you look at technologies that teenagers are using now, like Snapchat and things that enable them to communicate one-on-one on a private level, I think the next generation of consumers are going to be looking for ways to connect in a really genuine way with brands and with marketers.
Hi, I'm Chris J. I do public relations and social media for the Shreveport Bossier Convention and Tourist Bureau. I want to start out by just saying what an honor it is to be on a panel with these folks. Everybody on this panel is someone I admire greatly for different reasons. I couldn't agree more with Claire. I think independent content creators are really where it's at in the future. I don't know. It's just a gut feeling, but I feel like I think that the consumer is getting pretty sick of being marketed to. And I started out thinking sort of like an environmentalist, like, well, if I can get them the information they're looking for and cut down on the clutter, then, you know, I'm making their lives easier. But that was sort of a rose-colored glasses approach to digital marketing, you know, and I think people are really getting fed up with it all around. And I think that they're going to be increasingly relying on their peers, people they trust, and I don't know if they want. I mean, and I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if they want to hear from us, even if it's like a surgical strike, you know. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know is the short answer. But I do think independent content creators are where it's at in the future. Trusted voices.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. Now, let's move on to our next question of looking at your demographics on social media as far as your different platforms with YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Sarah mentioned Snapchat, Pinterest, Google+, etc. How are you reaching your audience, and where is your audience as far as the different platforms? Are you taking into account, well, the demographics of different audiences? So how do you reach them, and which ones are you using more than others, and what have you learned? We'll start with you, Ryan.
Well, from our perspective, each client, right, has their own particular given audience that we work with, whether it be, for instance, the American Red Cross, who has, you know, a basic life support training program, or a trial lawyer, right, who's objectively trying to position themselves as the guy for personal injury. So it's kind of all over the place. And at the end of the day, you know, we focus on what is the end result first that we're trying to achieve to determine where we're going to start in terms of content creation and the platform that we use to distribute. If you look at the West Coast, they've, you know, adopted a number of other platforms, a whole lot more than we have, i.e. Twitter largely is being used there. You look at Louisiana statistics, and most people are consuming social media on Facebook. And so, you know, for us, it really depends on the audience. It depends on the demographic, the geographic that we're targeting, and what the purpose of the content is that we're trying to create. You know, I would suggest to you, I think people do want to find the information, and they want it very quickly. They don't want to spend lots of time searching and looking and trying to find content. And so we believe in developing substantial volumes of semantically orchestrated content and dispersing that across a number of both relevant and not so relevant distribution channels for the indexing purposes of the search engine. So the fact is that if we can put enough content out there that we believe is sort of surgically targeted for a particular demographic, and we do it across a number of platforms that, number one, may be relevant to generate community interest and to be able to build on the trust of peers sharing the information, or simply doing a Vine video because it can get indexed above other types of content, sometimes we do that. So again, I think, you know, we're very driven by results. very much driven by the intelligence that we're sort of getting back, and that's kind of how we've approached it. And it's different for every client.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
I'll go ahead and jump in. Working specifically with a Kickstarter campaign that we launched last summer, we used several different social media sources, but the two that were the easiest to, I guess, define and really find trends with would be YouTube and Reddit. YouTube is, 12 to 18-year-old male and female. And what's interesting is that Variety recently did a study, a 1,500-person poll of people within that age range to ask them, who their most influential people in their or like voices in their lives are, and the top 5 were YouTube celebrities. So it's really interesting how these YouTube celebrities are influencing this younger generation that's moving so quickly into your key 18 to 35 demographic. And then also you have Reddit, which is at its core a content aggregator. And that's what people on Reddit want. They want aggregated content on things that they're super interested in. So whenever you have basically a social platform that you can place your content on, and that hits like your lower demographic, and then you have an aggregator like Reddit that can then disperse that information to not just not usually 12 to 18, but more 15 to 35. Then you have 2 tools that work together to really expand your ability to get your message out.
Thank you.
I'd add something as well. I mean, for us, we have customers that range from 21 to 81. Beer is interesting to people of all those ages, and we have everything from the young hipster to my grandparents and their friends coming into the brewery and having a pint. And so the vehicles that they use to digest information and collect information are all very different. So my grandfather, I always know when I've been in the paper because my grandfather will give me a phone call. So if it's on KTBS or in the local paper, I know I'm hitting that group. But then there's all these other different vehicles to try and attract the younger groups. And then there's also the baby boomers. So we use a variety of different vehicles. We do still have a traditional newsletter, not a print newsletter, but one that we email out. We use Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and we also use Untapped, which is a beer sharing. You can check into beers and rate them and share that with your friends. And so we use all of those tools, and I think it's just really important to diversify that content. What you put on Facebook, the users that you're targeting on Facebook aren't necessarily the people who are looking at Instagram all day. Mm-hmm. So kind of diversifying that content to meet the different groups that you're targeting is important.
I'd like to build on something that Lindsay was saying, which is the diversified content depending on your target market, and back up a little bit to talk about how important it is to have a strategy that's truly genuine to your brand. Know what your brand is, and always, no matter what your content is, how you disseminate that content, that you're always being authentic to your brand voice, whatever that demographic is.
Chris or Sarah, you want to say anything?
You were talking about demographics and specific platforms, and William Joyce, who's one of the partners at the studio, is very technologically savvy and loves connecting directly one-on-one with fans. And there's a really large Guardians of Childhood fan group on Tumblr that I stumbled across in my first year working at the studio. And they produce a massive amount of fan art. And so when his feature film Rise of the Guardians came out, we did a lot of targeted, images and original art, just for those fans, using the tags on Tumblr that they had created. And one of the cool things about that is that those fans self-organized with very little effort on our end. And they've done stuff like created a petition to create a sequel. They've been creating something called the Book of Belief, which is this beautiful book that they've created of all of their fan art. To petition DreamWorks to create a sequel, so they're going to deliver that with their petition. And it's not typically a platform I think that is appropriate for a lot of brands, but for us, because a lot of people with an interest in art and an interest in story are there posting their own content and creating their own content. It's an obvious choice for us to do things like premiere artwork from the next book that he's doing, which really got me excited. We posted the cover of the next Guardians of Childhood book on there a couple of months ago, and it just spread like wildfire. And it really taught me to identify really exclusive opportunities for those fans, because they're hungry for content that speaks to them.
Right.
I'll just add one really brief thing, and it may be bad advice. So with that disclaimer, but I'm always tempted to split the difference between who my demographic actually is and who I'd like it to be. I don't want to just pour all my resources into the bucket of people that I know we get to come to Shreveport Bossier on the weekends, which is like 55 plus empty nesters from East Texas, because one of these days Texas might legalize gambling, and all of a sudden those people are gone forever, and I haven't put anything into the other bucket, right? Like I find myself just, oh God, all this time I've just been preaching to the saved already, So like I always cut out a little bit of my effort and say, I'm gonna treat Shreveport Bossier like it's a cool destination for 25-year-old music-loving, craft beer drinking, cool people, because I want it to be, and one day we might need it to be. You know what I mean? So I guess that's just the short message: is don't just go after the people that are your customer, because one day they might all disappear. And anyway, I'll stop talking.
Well, thank you all. Kind of along those same lines, and Judy, you mentioned the kind of personal connection. What I'm curious about is the fans you don't have yet, and considering the demographics of these platforms, how are you reaching out to prospective fans, customers, et cetera? How are you making that first impression, that first touch? Is it, you mentioned newsletters, but it's not paper. Is paper completely dead? Are you reaching out to people on, and even in paper? So anyone want to take that one, go from there?
Chris, I think you've been really successful at this. You should answer.
What with print?
No. Just if you even use print, or if you're just using online, like how are you making that connection
To people that you want to reach.
to people that you want to reach?
Well,
Yes, exactly.
one thing that you can take advantage of right now is the fact that budgets are being cut left and right in the print industry, in the magazine world, for example. Like 5 years ago, my job would have been pitching stories to magazine editors and hoping they assigned some staff writer, which I don't even know if there are those anymore. There are just a whole lot of freelancers trying to sell stories. So what I decided to do was start blogging about things that I wanted to get coverage for, and then use the blog to pitch magazine editors and say, look, I can write this story. Here's a sample of it. It's already written. I could flesh it out for your publication. And I've gotten into some national magazines as a writer, just because they don't have anybody else to do, because the bottom line is really thin, right? So I used the blog as a pitching tool and took advantage of the budgets being cut, basically. I think that's what y'all might be alluding to, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times what we do at Moonbot is we create media that kids really enjoy, but really the decision makers in those households are parents or grandparents. And so a lot of times we talk in the studio about what kids like, but I always have to flip it in my head and say, what are the people with the actual wallets like? And so something that I've been working on is identifying like where do grandparents spend their time? And we're giant fans of Turner Classic Movies. We always have their channel running in our lobby. And for a long time I was thinking, wow, they've got to have some programming for kids or maybe grandparents. How can we connect with that? And so there's a program on their channel called Essentials Junior that we're going to be partnering with next summer to create some content around classic movies. So we're trying to associate our brand with classic movies that grandparents love, that they can introduce their kids to. And so much of what we do is inspired by classic movies. I think grandparents get it. They see those references to things like Singing in the Rain and Wizard of Oz and want to share that with their kids in some way that they connect with. So I'm hoping that works. We'll see next summer.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, going back to kind of budgeting, how are you making your marketing investment decisions? Are you looking at your ROI, your return of investment, or top of mind? So, how are you choosing which billboards or which ad placements to make or which Facebook ads to buy, et cetera?
So for Pixel Dash, it's different on two ends. One being brand development and the other being selling actual products. So brand development for us, because we'll operate sometimes on a B2C or a B2B basis, we'll take on clients and build custom software for them. We find that building top of mind awareness is important. That way, whenever we can finally make that first connection, you get the, oh, I've heard of you part to it. But whenever it comes to selling an actual product, operating especially in a free-to-play space, you have to track your return on investment. And like the easiest equation that I can give for that is that your cost per acquisition for a user has to be less than the lifetime value of the user. So that's just, there are so many different key performance indicators and metrics that go into tracking lifetime value that it would take me the entire hour to really break it down. But definitely, if you're looking to track return on investment, you should know just what your lifetime value for the customer is, and then that will lead you to your ROI.
Ideally, I think if you have the budget to do both, to be top of mind and also to be very targeted, that's terrific. Sometimes you don't have that, but there are products and services that we sell, that we want to market, that are not immediate decision makers, and therefore you have to be top of mind. And I'll give you an example. If you are marketing, for instance, a hospital or a cancer treatment center, if you're not that very narrow target market, you're not interested. But when you are, if that happens, if you have not been top of mind, then those people are not going to be able to make that choice. So, it depends on the product, it depends on the service, but ideally you're able to do both.
Nice. Well, how do you measure your digital marketing strategies? Obviously, that applies to all of y'all. So, who's measuring it, and how are you doing it?
Working with our free-to-play mobile game, it's called Swap Drop Poker. We track metrics based on 3 key performance indicators, which are retention, virality, and monetization potential. And there are a couple of different metrics that go into bringing this all together, but I find that whenever I'm tracking digital metrics, there's almost too much data. And so it's all about paring it down based on the goals that you and your team have sit down and set beforehand. So if you can, have those goals in front of you, like first thing, then you can choose what your key performance indicators are. And that's the best way to keep everything organized and on track, and know that, and be able to at least go back to your boss or your team and say, like, we know we're on track because this, and this are happening.
For us, there's a lot of ways to do it. And, interesting enough, digital marketing and social marketing, there's not the whole gross rating points thing like you would have with some of the traditional forms of media. Now, there's some companies that are attempting to do that. They're all kind of all over the place. But, when we work with a client, we're trying to determine, what is the conversion funnel, and what do you define as a conversion, right? Some clients could, if it's a online software company or a gaming company, if someone signs up, plays the game, they visit one time, that could be a conversion. It could be a conversion if someone signs up for a newsletter and we put them on HubSpot and put a cookie in their browser and we're kind of tracking their activity going forward. So, there's a lot of different ways that I think you can begin to determine what is an ROI, but it's not very straightforward. And I think as someone who pitches this to businesses every day, that is the question and the holy grail that everyone wants to know is, how do you determine if what I'm spending is effective? For instance, our company is working with a local mayoral campaign here in town. And for less than $2,700, we got 3.5 million impressions in this market. For the record, markets like Shreveport are very easy to own and to dominate if you know how to do your Google ad buys properly. But there were people calling into the campaign saying, "This guy's everywhere. What are you guys doing?" Well, I mean, we're retargeting. There's a lot of simple things that we're doing that give them this impression. But for him, he had a bump in fundraising because the guy thought he's everywhere. These guys must be knowing what they're doing from a campaign perspective. But the reality is, the ROI is, I think it can be any number of things. And so we're working with an auto dealer, for instance, and this particular, it's a regional auto dealer, and for them, someone's not going to go online and say all of a sudden I just want to buy this $40,000 truck, right? So top of mind is extremely important for a dealer. So we're developing a website. There's two things we're doing. One, we're developing a website that is completely branded to this particular dealer that aggregates all of the high school sports. So you can go to this one website to see all the high school sports in the area. And for this particular dealer, that's what they sponsor all the time anyway. Now you can go to one place. But then there's all these premium content sources that we put on there that if they enter their information, if they enter their email address, we can begin targeting and sort of nurturing those leads over time. And, again, we're not trying to sell them anything, quite frankly, on the site. We're simply trying to capture them and then nurture them. The second thing that we've done for this client that, again, these have these sort of ROI metrics to it, is there's a Challenger Hellcat that's coming out. So now it's a Dodge dealer that's coming out. And it's like a 750 horsepower car for those that are into that sort of thing. But it's neat. Well, they're only going to, this limited production, they're only going to make so many of them. This particular dealer's been allocated a certain number of these, and people have to put down substantial deposits just to get in line to buy the car. So we've developed a platform that you can go to. Really, I say platform. It's a microsite dedicated to content distribution. And so we put all this sort of unique content on here, and that the more someone interacts with the content and shares the content, they get entered into a lottery. And as they do these things, they increase their chances of being selected to be able to buy the car. And so anyway, it's just an interesting component. So for this particular dealer, his comment was, after we do this for 12 months, these variety of campaigns, we like to think that we'll have a better understanding of who our client really is. So we've got all of this sort of data gathering stuff that we're trying to do. And for him and for this dealership, that's important to them, right? They're not trying to be able to say, this ad sent this guy to buy a truck. But at this point, their primary objective is data collection and really to understand who their audience is. So again, I think it does vary from the client that you're working with and what is their overall objective. And it could be all over the place. So I think it is important that you do define where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow so that you can at least have some measurable benchmark. I don't know if that answers the question. Some thoughts?
Oh, it does. And it makes me think of something that's not on your paper. So sorry, I'm going to go off of that. But
bring it.
I'm curious how kind of much of your day or week, how much are you dedicating to research, to figure out your marketing strategy? Are you even doing that? I read a comic once, Dilbert, he said that marketing is just liquor and guessing.
I should try that approach next. Absolutely.
Of course, that's not true. There is some actual research that goes on, but how much of your week are you allowing to research, if that is even applicable?
I think it would be hard for me to answer that because I think it's ongoing research.
Right.
Every time we engage with a prospect or a potential customer, the information we get back is research, and the more we engage, as Ryan is talking about, with what they're doing, the more we engage, the more we find out. So in a sense, it's kind of all the time.
That's true.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint exactly when. I do set aside a minimum of 30 minutes a day to read blogs,
nice.
That are just blogs that I think are informative or might set trends or that might be publications I want to get into. Sometimes I feel like that's not enough time because I literally subscribe to 300 blogs. It's just not enough time to read all the content. But Judy's right. A lot of times while I'll be looking at reports from, many dashboards or whatever, I'll go, there's something about this that is weird to me. And, the next thing I know, it's 3 o'clock and I've just been looking at articles about how to convert people, much faster. And that's the thing that's tough for me, is a lot of times I feel like I spin my wheels. So I also think it's important to set a cap on how much research you do, because at the end of the day, if you're not actually implementing all the strategies that you're able to, quote the buzzwords from, or, explain to other people, then it's pretty pointless.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what she's saying, that you can definitely do almost too much research, because it's just you're going to pull down a bunch of PDFs, they're going to sit on your desktop for a month and a half, and then they're going to go into some Evernote abyss, and that's just going to be it. But what I like to do, instead of allocating a specific amount of time a week, is anytime a question comes up, I, living in the future, can just go straight to the internet and find exactly or find at least the information to answer that question at that moment. And so research is constantly ongoing, and I'm always learning something different. So I would say just answer the questions as soon as they come up and be able to.
If at all possible, marry someone smarter than you. I'm married to Sarah.
He's smarter than
So at the end of the day, I just ask, like, so, hey, what that stuff you've been reading for the last couple hours? What was the really good stuff? Just an insider tip.
No, it goes both ways.
Right. Well, before we open it up to question and answer, I want to see if each of you kind of have a favorite free tool that you use. It could be Google Analytics. It could be something.
It can't be, because you just
Yes,
said it.
you're right. Well, I use Google Analytics. Okay. There's my free tool.
I was going to say that one as well. With Great Raft right now, we're not really at a point where we're investing a lot in advertising and tracking all of that stuff right now, because the word of mouth, being such a young company, and it is beer after all, so it's not like I'm trying to sell you, I don't know, toilet paper, something totally boring. It's a little bit easier of a sell, so we're not at a point now where we're doing a lot of tracking, but Google Analytics is a very helpful tool for us, just with the basic things that we do right now. And the corporate stuff, everything, I guess I won't bring anything up on the Cisco side, because everything is paid for. It might be free to me, but it wouldn't be fair to use that as a free tool assessment. So,
Can I ask you a follow-on question?
no. Yes, you can. Sure.
Do you use any metrics from Square, like the feedback forms? Because I know when I pay at Square, I usually get something back.
Yes, we do. We do get. We don't. It's not actually like capturing all of your information. So people are always very amazed. We have a Square stand at the brewery. So whenever you actually buy your beer, it's an iPad that's inside of a Square stand that I bought at Best Buy, and you can easily swipe the card. And actually, if you have associated your email address with your credit card, whenever I swivel it around and turn it to you and it asks for your signature, it also then asks you if you want a receipt. And half the time, the customer's information is already in there. And they think I'm creeping on them, like, oh, you already know who I am. But I actually don't get any of that data. Yeah. But it does ask you for feedback. And some of the feedback that we get from our customers comes back directly to us. And it shares, you can say whether or not you had a good experience, good service. Some people just know that we're the ones reading it and leave us funny messages. But yes, we do get some of that.
One of the tools that I really like is a very simple one, and it's Google Alerts, but not necessarily in the way you would think. Of course, we have Google Alerts for all our clients, but what I like to do is look at the industry that our clients are in and look at what the trend words are, and I'll set a Google Alert for that so that I'll get information on a trend that's happening or something that I know my client needs to be aware of or maybe be a voice for, and so I'll get that alert pretty quickly. So that's a really simple, easy one for me.
I'm going to break the rules, and I'm going to give you 2 free tools. Yes. One is for internal projects. Anytime you need to do collaboration with your team, I know we work with a pretty small team, and time is always of the essence. And so using the Google Drive suite for like real-time collaboration on documents is one of the best tools that we have. It allows us to have team members working remotely. Like whenever I'm sick, I'm usually still working from my computer. So it's great to be able to collaborate with my bosses, my team, to get a product out on time. And that's for internal. for external, whenever we were doing our Kickstarter campaign, the most imperative tool that I had is called Net Vibes. And what it does is it tracks blog mentions, social mentions. It's like Google Alerts, but it's quicker, and I find that it's more comprehensive. You may get a little noise in there, but whenever we were doing the Road Redemption campaign, I could see everyone that mentioned anything about road redemption, road rash, anything like that, so that I could then respond to them on a human level, and bring it onto a personal level, saying that we're not just a brand, we're not just a company with no name or no face, just somebody that you can talk to, and we can have a public discussion in an open forum, usually Twitter. And that was really helpful to pushing us as the indie company that we are.
For me, unfortunately, I don't get to use lots of free applications, but when I have, Buffer was one of those for sometimes my personal use of social media for distribution, just being able to schedule content out. It's important for me to keep up with my own stuff as much as my clients at times, and so I've used Buffer, and it works real well.
This is going to be corny, but right now I'm really feeling the old-fashioned handshake. It's a really good free tool for getting something done. Tonight, the company I work for is spending about $3,000 to put on a party for local bloggers and local social media influencers, Urban Spoon Prime users, Yelp. The Yelp Elite, folks who've left thousands of reviews who are tastemakers and just haven't thought of themselves as part of the marketing machine of Shreveport-Bossier. And I don't want them to, but I do want them to come to our party and meet us and know that the Tourist Bureau sees them as part of, our efforts. And I want to be friends with them. I want to know their names, and I want to be able to work together with them. So that is I just really feel like saying hi, shaking hands in the world we live in, getting to know people is really valuable.
Yeah. So following on the Google Alerts and Net Vibes, I have found both of the services to not meet my needs. And so I actually just recently converted from a free to paid user on a service called mention.net, which will automatically import all of your Google Alerts, and it monitors multiple social media platforms. And it's great for teams because you can assign responses to different members of your teams. Unfortunately, I'm a marketing team of one, so I don't have anyone else to assign things to, so I just assign things to myself for fun. But it's a free service. It's a limited number of mentions, so if you're a small brand, it's great. We got to a point where we were just like exploding the free limit, and I was like, I need some money to pay for this. But it's an invaluable tool. Like if somebody was like, I'm taking away your money for it, I would cry because I love the free version. And then there was another one I wanted to mention, but I don't remember what it is now. Anyway.
Thank you all. We want to open it up a little bit of question and answer. Does anyone in the audience have something for? Yes.
My voice is loud enough. Don't worry about it. I'll just yell at you. I've been part of several organizations where there was there was basically a division. I mean, it was church and state between the production end, between your engineers and your designers, and the people who make the things, and the people on the other side that are they're not support staff. They're as integral to the organization. But you got your bean counters and your decision makers on Mahogany Row that are playing golf 3 days a week after their 4 martini lunches, and then you got those slicky boys down the hall in marketing. And it seems as if that wall, that church and state partition, has almost necessarily dissolved. Particularly with the advent of digital media and the importance of reaching potential consumers via those now traditional, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, those were non-traditional vectors. But the equation is flipped, and particularly with the growth of what they call native advertising, which is basically sponsored content or advertorials that are masquerading as actual sincere content that is now infused with marketing. How important is it to you that at least the appearance, if not the actuality, of church and state between those those related but not necessarily congruent elements of producing and distributing content or products? How important is that stays where it is, or do you not care, or do you feel that the consumer no longer cares?
I will say, I just hit my 2-year mark at Moonbot, and when I started, marketing was really separate from everything that we did. And I kind of pushed my way into the production team very quickly because I realized if I was not involved very early, we were going to make products that didn't resonate with people and that weren't, successful, that didn't make us money at the end of the day. And luckily, I work with an incredibly talented team that respects what I do. And I'm the only person in the company that does it. So they kind of have to respect me, I guess, in a way. I don't know. They don't really have a choice. But also, we're tiny compared to other companies that do what we do. And our production team, in terms of like people who do marketing and who like run projects and stuff like that, is a little bitty portion of the team compared to the people who actually do stuff like paint, matte paintings or do the programming. And so we are always having to be very on hands with the team. And the thing I've found is that the project leads are excited about that because they're learning about a different part of the project than they're typically asked to work on. And I'm excited about it because I get to learn more about what they're doing. I hope it's that way at more companies because it's so much more fulfilling for me to not work in a silo, to really be part of a product from conception to actual delivery to the market. It's wonderful because I really get to help them figure out what exactly a consumer wants out of the creative thing that they're making.
But are you never concerned at MoveBot that maybe the tail is wagging the dog a little bit?
Oh, no,
and that
no.
the production side is being reactive to what marketing tells them?
No, that never happens. I have to say that. Like, I have really strong opinions about things that get struck down all the time because of artistic integrity. Luckily, I come from an artistic background, so I totally understand that. There are times where I like to walk out of a room with a pouty face because I didn't get my way, but at the end of the day, the people I work with, I really trust, and they have an equal amount of trust in me. And I think also, in some ways, we've had some small failures where either the artistic side took the lead too hard, our marketing took the lead too hard, and we learned a really valuable lesson from that. I mean, our company has not been in business for 5 years yet, so we still haven't reached the mark where we have to prove to ourselves that we will be successful with every single thing that we put out there. But that's the nice thing about what we work in, is that we can iterate really fast and put things out there and test the waters really fast and adjust. I hope that my coworkers would say the same thing. I think they would.
One of the things that I think doesn't change no matter what size your company is that your associates, your employees, are your number one target market. They're your number one customer, more than your clients are, more than anybody else. And so to treat the people with whom you work with the respect that no matter what your position in the company, you may have an idea that I haven't thought of. You may have some perspective that hasn't occurred to me. And so to have the respect for you to listen to all voices, whether they're from the creative side or the account service side or the person who answers the phone or whatever, to have that level of respect that I don't know where a great idea is coming from. It's not always going to come from a creative director. It might come from somebody who waters the plants. It's just, seriously, that basic level of respect for the people with whom you work, and it's amazing what kind of ideas you can get.
And I just want to say one thing, because I think Judy does this really well. I used to work for Judy. Judy hires people who are a personality fit for her company and really helps them be the most creative people possible. And for me in my current position, I have learned so much from her about making sure that you work with people that you genuinely like and that you're invested in, because it makes such a big difference whenever you have the marketing versus creative argument. I love the person that's sitting across the table from me, and I love working with them. So I don't want to be mad at them. I want to come to like the best solution with them. And I think, working with a team that you really value in that way helps resolve those sorts of conflicts.
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm going to agree 100% on that. Pixel Dash is a pretty small company. We have about 12 people that work in the office. And whenever I say in the office, I mean we are in the same room, all of us. There are no partitions. The bosses sit across the tables from their employees. And it's 100% a team. And so I am also the only marketing person in the company. And so I also work testing the products whenever they've gone through engineering. I also work as a copywriter in the creative side. So I float between all of these areas, and so I can input ideas on marketing through there. But in the end, it's a team project, and so you have so many people with so many different backgrounds coming together. It's not a hypodermic needle. It doesn't just happen and then you walk away. Everyone has their own input, and that's what makes the product. What you were saying about advertorials, just in my personal opinion, coming from an advertising background, we're always taught that the height of advertising ethics is to make sure that it is obvious that it is an advertisement. That's one of the tenets of advertising, is that it's clearly recognized as an advertisement as it's paid for. And I think that a lot of your, I don't know what you would call them, I suppose, publishers that you see online now, that they have advertorials, they're always, the ones that I've seen are written in a way that it's not really ever about the product that's sponsoring them. It's about the industry or the genre. And so it's not about buy this, it's about consider this scenario and make a decision within it.
Go ahead.
In the last panel we were talking about startups and startup funding and in the life cycle of a startup where your funding is especially early on rarely used for marketing. Kind of like Sarah was talking about in the early stages of her company, they're bootstrapping their marketing and doing, you know.
And we still are. We still are very much bootstrapped every dollar.
But I just kind of want to take a poll because I'm really I'm enjoying the dialogue here and the expertise that you guys have. I think some startups could use some of that expertise. I guess my poll would be, are all of you mentoring startups?
Yes, we're actually a part of the Louisiana Startup Prize. So we've not only been a part of the roundtables and the mentors and the judges, but we're giving away $10,000 worth of free marketing to the winner. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because as young companies that can't get funding to get some help around the right things to bootstrap around, being on an advisory board and mentoring those companies is really valuable. I'm glad to hear that. So that was my only question.
Pixel Dash is technically still a startup. So yes, I would. Pixel Dash is a startup, so I would say that yes, I do mentor them.
I'm in that boat too.
No, but I'd like to say that the two of you in what you'd call startups can be valuable to other startups as well, just as a peer relationship in the battle-tested ground that you've been on. Mm-hmm. So encourage you to do that if you're not. It certainly helps the entrepreneur ecosystem if all of you are involved. It sounds like you really are.
I think a lot of us are kind of involved with the networking that's going on with Cohab. A lot of startups are coming out of downtown Shreveport, which is fantastic. And I work for SciPort, which is a science center on the riverfront, and we're going to start working with a PandaBit and get some electronic waste, recycling coming in. So I think we all kind of touch in on the startups in one way or another. So that's a great point, and it's definitely a growing industry in Shreveport Bossier. Anything else from the audience? Yep.
Hello. Oh, is it on?
It's
okay. Couple of questions. When you were talking about different forms of free advertising analytics, how useful for you has, if you use it, have things like the YouTube analytics been? And with regard to the Kickstarter campaigns, what have you found to be the best strategy for advertising your Kickstarter pitches?
The best strategy for advertising the Kickstarter is to have an existing audience that's interested in whatever you're making. Hands down.
And I will say something in the reverse. Moonbot, we had a Kickstarter campaign that actually failed, which was a great learning experience for us. And I will say part of it was because we were entering into a market we had not been in before. So we did not have an audience in like classic console video games, which is what we wanted to make. We're known as like a kids app entertainment producer. So to make that leap for that audience was sometimes difficult for them to understand where we were coming from. And, since then we've been spending a lot of time kind of demonstrating our expertise in that area.
But Sarah, I would say define failure, because while you may have
failure,
you may not have reached your financial goal, but you cultivated an entire market that you wouldn't have had. And what I loved about your Kickstarter campaign was you did different levels where you offered people incentives at different levels to engage with you, gamers to engage with you. And I thought you really segmented that beautifully. So you ended up with a group of folks that you didn't have before. I think that's a success.
Yeah, and I do hear all the time from people who pledge for the campaign, who are checking out our new products, who are staying in touch with us, who have called me on the phone and have sent me emails, and that I've been able to connect with one-on-one. So yeah, it failed in the sense of Kickstarter did not give us money, I guess is what I should say.
Another point on the Moonbot campaign was that it's still it had a significant amount of money pledged to it.
Yes, it was a huge campaign. I mean, it was for like $900,000. So we knew getting into it that there was probably a 98% chance we weren't going to get funded, but it was our opportunity to kind of say, hey, we want to make these kinds of games. We want to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was still an impressive campaign. I followed it. Yeah. So I guess apart from having a built-in audience, I would say that your content creators within your company or within your group are the most important things, most important assets. And to have those things lined up before the campaign launches, knowing when you're going to release them and in what fashion and what kind of message you're going to put behind them. Because it's not enough to just say, I have a Kickstarter, you should care, because like that was cool in 2012, but it's not newsworthy anymore. So it's finding that angle that makes it newsworthy, why people should care, why the everyday Joe on the street should invest $40 into a promise, because it's not the same. It's not the same as having a venture capitalist or an angel fund give you, drop however much on your product and then, have minimal oversight. It's a legitimate hardship for some people to pledge $40 on a promise. So that's something that you definitely have to be aware of and be able to show that you can do what you're promising you can do.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of piggyback on that and just say it's important that you don't just put everything into the Kickstarter and then say, we'll see what happens from here. It's really important that you speak to those people that you're targeting and demonstrate your ability to do what it is you're saying that you're going to do. Mm-hmm. I've grown increasingly frustrated with the number of breweries who are trying to get started through Kickstarter. I like beer, so I'm going to make it now, and you should give me money. But I don't know anything about you, anything about your brewing experience, or your ability to run a business. And so I want to drink that beer one day if I'm going to give you $50. And so it's really important to build some sort of framework around those promotional tools and to demonstrate that you are a subject matter expert or you have the ability to succeed once you have our money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate y'all sitting in this afternoon and hearing what our fantastic, talented panelists have to say. Let's give them a round of applause.
And moderator.
Thanks, Karen.
So, thank y'all and enjoy the rest of DigiFest South.
Great meeting you too, Jimmy.